Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers pounded the Rockies 13-0. Great game at the plate for the whole team. Great game on the mound for Tyler Anderson. A little bit of fun at the end. We're going to talk all about this game. We're going to talk about where some individual Dodgers stand on the offensive leaderboards. And we're going to talk about Hanser Alberto tying a little bit of a record tonight. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and then you will never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, my name is Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio. We are doing a split episode today, so I will be with you for the first half. Vince will be with you for the second half. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And as I mentioned at the top, the Dodgers pounded the Rockies 13-0. They really got to Jose Urena early in the game and then knocked around a couple of relievers too. All in all, they ended up with, almost every starter. Every starter except Zach McKinstry ended up with at least one hit. McKinstry had 2 walks and reached on an error, so he was on base plenty of times. When your only guy without a hit scored 2 runs, you're probably doing something okay. Dodgers had 14 hits. They had 5 walks. Just a really, really dominant team performance. I don't know why I have my phone way over there when it's easier to see when it's up closer. But yeah, really good game. And some of the people you would expect to have good games had good games. Trey Turner, 3 for 4, only played, I think, less than half the game, went 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 3 runs scored. Gavin Lux, after making the third out of the inning, his first 2 times up, he got hits in his next 3 times at the plate, scored a run, drove in a run. Bellinger had a 2-run double. That was nice to see. Max Muncy had a base hit to start a rally, a pretty important rally, actually. So it was a really good all-around team effort. And as I was looking at this, after going 3 for 5, Gavin Lux is now batting .307. And so I was thinking, I wonder what the individual leaderboards look like right now. And so I'm looking at the National League leaders. And the Dodgers have 3 of the top 4 batting averages in the National League. Paul Goldschmidt leads the league with a .335 batting average. And then you've got Freddie Freeman at .323, Trey Turner at .312, and Gavin Lux at .307. That is pretty impressive. Batting average, it's poo-pooed in some advanced statistics corners. And yeah, batting average doesn't tell you the whole story because there are other ways to get on base besides getting a hit. But getting a lot of hits is good. It is one of the ways to get on base. And so it's not that it's a bad stat, it's incomplete. A little bit more complete is on base percentage because getting on base is the opposite of getting out. So on base percentage, or as I like to call it, not getting out percentage, the Dodgers have 2 of the top 5. Freddie, Goldschmidt leads that also at .417. Then you got Freddie Freeman at .401, Juan Soto at .400, Josh Bell at .387, and Gavin Lux at .382. Lux is 5th in the league in on-base percentage. That is very, very impressive. He doesn't have the hit totals like, Freeman has 123 hits. Trey Turner has 124 hits. Gavin Lux only has 88 hits, but he also has 36 walks, which is very, very good. He doesn't get as many at-bats as those guys. He has almost 100 fewer at-bats than Freeman and more than 100 fewer at-bats than Trey Turner just because they bat at the top of the order. Lux bats at the bottom of the order most of the time. So he's not getting as many at-bats, but when he is getting up to the plate, he is making the most of it. You look at slugging percentage. There's one that Lux isn't as high, although for a guy with only 3 or 4 home runs like he has, he's higher than you would expect him to be. But the Dodgers have Freddie Freeman 4th in the league and Mookie Betts 5th. So 2 of the top 5 in slugging percentage. Trey Turner is down at 10. So they have 3 of the top 10 in the league in slugging percentage. And then Will Smith is down at 24th in the league, which is still, for the Dodgers have 4 of the top 24. There are 15 teams in the National League. You would think that each team would have roughly 1.8 of the top 24 guys in slugging percentage if it was distributed evenly. The Dodgers have 4. That's more than twice as many as you would expect. Overall, if you look at OPS, on base plus slugging percentage, Goldschmidt, of course, leads that. Freeman is 3rd at 939. Mookie is 9th at 874. Trey Turner is 11th at 860. And Gavin Lux is 17th at 818. That's I mentioned Gavin Lux's slugging percentage is 436, despite only having 4 home runs, because he also has 15 doubles and 5 triples. Those are very valuable. All in all, just like there's been several times this year that we've said, well, the Dodgers haven't really gotten their offense going. It's they're not quite coming together. Just imagine they're coming together now. These guys, and there's still guys who aren't yet, but it is it's pretty clear that the Dodgers have turned it on offensively, and they are getting pretty serious about this whole thing. It's what we expected from this team. When the front office put this team together, we expected them to pound the ball, score a bunch of runs, and all hit really well. And that's what they've been doing. And it still feels like there's more to come, simply because Muncy and Bellinger haven't done much. Justin Turner is just starting to turn it on. But overall, I mean, they have been really, really good. And I mean, Justin Turner's OPS is up to 737. He's above average in OPS now, despite his terrible, terrible start. And so really it's just Bellinger and Muncy who aren't really pulling their weight. And we've talked plenty about that. But those top guys, seeing, and Will Smith has had some bad luck. It was nice to see him get a couple hits and 3 RBIs in this game. I don't know why I said RBIs. I know how to say RBI, not like a robot. But nice to see Smith. Hopefully that can get him going. He's been really struggling since the All-Star break. And but he hits the ball really well. And tonight was kind of a classic Will Smith game. Beautiful game. All in all, just nice stress-free game. The Dodgers put up 6 in the first inning against the Nationals on Wednesday, which was nice. Just let you kind of enjoy the rest of the game. This time they were up 6-0 after the second inning. And then they said, we'll score 5 in the 4th inning too. And then we'll score 2 in the 7th inning. They just kept on piling on, and it was a lot of fun. Coors Field, we've said before, don't get too high or too low about anything that happens at Coors Field. But the Dodgers have had some kind of bad performances at Coors Field this year. And so I am going to get a little bit high on Tyler Anderson. Throwing 7 shutout innings at Coors Field is a big deal. And, Vince will probably talk more about Tyler Anderson's outing in his part of this episode. I'm not going to go too far into that, except for that was awesome. I loved when Dave Roberts came out to talk to Tyler Anderson in the bottom of the 7th inning. And Anderson said, I could do this. Please let me finish this inning. And Dave Roberts said, okay. And then the next pitch, Tyler Anderson was out of the inning because he threw a double play ball. Beautiful, beautiful game. Jake Reed pitched the 8th inning. And then Hanser Alberto pitched the 9th inning. And I'm going to come back in just a minute. I'm going to talk about Hanser Alberto pitching the 9th and a little bit of history that he made. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. And please keep it Locked On Dodgers. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job posted minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. The MLB trade deadline is August 2nd, and Locked On MLB has all the breakdowns. Locked On Dodgers will have rapid reactions to any move made. So subscribe now to Locked On Dodgers on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast so you get notified when each episode premieres. I'm back. Couple more minutes with me before I hand it off to Vince. And I want to talk a little bit about Hanser Alberto. It's position player pitching. I've heard a lot of people say they're over it. And I understand that sentiment. It is still kind of fun. Brett Phillips is fun to watch pitch. He's done it quite a few times. It can be fun. For me, the thing that makes it less fun sometimes is usually it happens when the position players team is getting blown out. Since 2000, there have been 465 instances of position players pitching, and 443 of those have come in losses. Only 22 have come in wins. That's 4.7% of position player pitching appearances since 2000 have come in wins. The other 95.3% have come in losses. And so I think that's part of why some people are over it, because it's like, okay, well, this guy's out. Yeah, that's fun, except his team just got blown out. So that kind of sucks. The Dodgers, though, 6 of their last 9 position player pitching appearances have been in wins. Those 6, 3 by Russell Martin, and now 3 by Hanser Alberto. Russell Martin's all came in 2019. Alberto's have all come this year. Tonight was actually Hanser Alberto's 5th career pitching appearance, but his 3rd this year, and all 3 this year have come in wins. The other 2 came in losses. Now, the record, I looked, and Hanser Alberto actually tied Russell Martin. Their 3 appearances each in victories is the most in the expansion era. I looked all time, and it just gets, even in the expansion era, you have to like weed out Shohei Ohtani, because you can't. There's some guys, Rick Ankiel started his career as a pitcher, later was an outfielder, and so he shows up on these lists. Brooks Kieschnick, who was not really a pitcher, not really an outfielder, just a little bit of both, but he was not your typical position player pitching. You got to weed those guys out to get to the actual position players. And when you get farther back, it seems like back in the early days of baseball, and by early days, I mean the first 100 years or so of Major League Baseball, those things were happening all the time. You got guys like Chubby Dean. It's like, I don't know if that dude, which of his appearances, he was a position player for part of his career. He was a pitcher for part of his career. He may have pitched sometimes when he was a position player. I don't know. So I went to the expansion era, 1961 on. That's kind of I feel like we can kind of say baseball has been baseball since then. It's a different game than it used to be. There's a lot of things that are the same, but a lot of things are different. So I went back to the expansion era, and Russell Martin and Hanser Alberto are the only guys with 3 pitching appearances in wins as position players. In fact, they're the only guys with even 2. There have been a few others since since 2019. The Dodgers have 6 position player pitching appearances in wins. The rest of MLB has 9 total since 2019. So the Dodgers are really paving the way there. Part of that is because the Dodgers don't get blown out much. So when they do have a position player pitching, it's going to be because they're winning most of the time. They have had those 3. Justin Turner, I know, pitched in one. I can't remember who the other 2 were. Oh, Andy Burns and somebody else. But yeah, pitching in a win, it's a lot more fun. I was at the first time Russell Martin did it. It was first week of the season in 2019, if I remember right, against the D-backs. I think the D-backs backup catcher also pitched in that game. Somebody hit a home run off him, either Jock or Belly, I think. Anyway, that was fun. When your team is on the winning end, yeah, it can just be fun. This one tonight was extra fun because Hanser was preserving a shutout, and it's kind of fun, or not fun. I like that Dave Roberts didn't care about the team shutout. He cared about, let's win this game and not have to use any of our high leverage relievers. After the blowout against the Nationals on Wednesday, and then this game, now you can truly say the whole bullpen is fully rested. Jake Reed is going to be the only pitcher unavailable on Friday, and that's a good situation to be in. So I like that Dave Roberts was willing to go to Alberto, even though there was a team shutout. And I like that Hanser Alberto rewarded him by preserving that shutout. So just it's ultimately meaningless, but it was fun, a little bit of fun in this game that had a lot of fun to it. Winning by a lot of runs, watching your favorite team hit the ball really well is always fun. So Vince is going to have more to say about this game, and hopefully this sets the tone for this weekend series with the Rockies. The Dodgers can show the Rockies who's boss in this series, and then go to San Francisco and remind the Giants who's boss over there. So thank you for watching and listening. Thanks for being with us every day, making us your first listen. And Vince will be along in a minute.
BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. So head to BetOnline today on your laptop or mobile device. Learn more about the action that's going on. BetOnline, where the game starts. Yo, Dodger fans, Vince here to close out the episode. And yeah, I'm going to talk Tyler Anderson. I'm going to talk some rehabbing players, and then going to have a quick discussion about Diego Cartaya and who he should be moved for if they are going to move him. But first, it's Tyler Anderson, like Jeff said, went 7 innings. Shutout ball in Colorado. It was a good night for him. You know, his former team. He says he likes pitching in Colorado. I believe I asked him, or someone asked him on media day around All-Star, favorite place to play other than LA, and I'm pretty sure he said Denver, which is probably one of the only players that would pick that place. But yeah, he was good, and it was just another night for him. I mean, he All-Star, 11-1, 2.61 ERA now, 0.99 WHIP. Doesn't get it done with the strikeouts, as we know, 91 strikeouts in 110 innings, but gets it done, limits the hard contact, and has just been a blessing for the Dodgers so far this season. You know that he signed the 1-year, $8 million deal. We remember, or when it came up, when after he did pitch well against Angels, how there was some Angel publications online that were saying basically that the Angels dodged a bullet by not signing him. And now we see what the truth was. And it's just another, notch to him. Congrats to him. And I don't know, man. It kind of lends itself a little bit into this next segment, or this next part I want to talk about, which is Diego Cartaya and Jeff Passan. Cartaya hit 2 home runs last night. One of them almost went out of the stadium. The next one did go out of the stadium. And Jeff Passan tweeted, if the Dodgers make any big moves, this is potentially one of the guys that could be involved in it. And it got me thinking, like, I don't think Diego Cartaya. For me, Diego Cartaya and Bobby Miller were the untouchables, especially heading into the trade deadline before the Juan Soto news broke. I don't think they're untouchable for Juan Soto. I don't think they're untouchable for Shohei Ohtani. But I do think they're untouchable for anybody else. Luis Castillo, Frankie Montas, a reliever, obviously. Even JD Martinez, who was recently linked to the Dodgers. And unless it's for Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani, I don't believe or think that the Dodgers should be making Diego Cartaya available. He has shown himself to be a bona fide stud in the making. He's been able, to remain at catcher so far. He's been able to hit at every level, and he's only going to, continue to ascend into his way into superstardom, you would hope. And just based on timeline, he can come up. The Dodgers would have a couple catchers if need be. If Will Smith sticks around after his service time is up, the Dodgers could have a decision to make at that point, or they could use him at DH, or they could, use Will Smith at third base a little bit more. Justin Turner, this might be his last year. They don't necessarily have somebody that's set for third base. So there's a lot of things they can do. But, yeah, Diego Cartaya should not be traded for anybody but Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani or somebody of that caliber if they happen to become available. I don't know who else that would theoretically be available that would be worth it to me to trade Cartaya. And Castillo is good, would help the Dodgers, but Tyler Anderson has just he's mowed down bad teams, good teams. It hasn't really mattered to him. He's been able to shut it down. Like I said, 0.99 WHIP, a 2.61 ERA. We're deep enough into the season where those are legitimate stats. And other than the first two times when he piggybacked behind Gonsolin, he's been a starter ever since. And Clayton Kershaw has been really good. Other than maybe the last couple starts, one was more laboring, one he struggled, but he's been good the entire year. You have Tony Gonsolin, who's labored a little bit, but he's been good and should continue to be good. Maybe not as good as he was in the first half, but still good. And then you got Walker Buehler maybe coming back. You got Dustin May maybe coming back, who I'm going to talk about right now. And you got Julio, who's been good all year and been solid all year. And, yeah, as of right now, if no Buehler, do the Dodgers have a bona fide number one ace? No. But what they do have is some really good starting pitching with some really good bullpen once everyone's healthy. And they also have the potential for Dustin May and Walker Buehler to be a factor somewhat into that pitching staff. So it's not worth it to me to trade Cartaya for a starting pitcher, even though Castillo does have the one extra year. The Dodgers wouldn't just have him for the rest of this season. They would have him into next season. I don't think that's enough for me. I don't think he puts them above too many other teams. The Mets are good. The Mets have Scherzer and DeGrom. The Mets offense is not as good as the Dodgers offense. So while the Dodgers offense might struggle against Scherzer and DeGrom, the Mets offense might struggle against the Dodgers starting pitching, even though the Dodgers starting pitching may not be as strong 1-2. But 1 through 4, Dodgers starting pitching is starting to look, comparable to the Mets, comparable to any other team in the National League and even in the American League, just based on numbers. Obviously, it's a different factor. Our team's going to be, quote unquote, scared of Tyler Anderson in the postseason, or scared, quote unquote, of Tony Gonsolin in the postseason. Maybe not, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be effective or they can't be effective. And I think at this point, the Dodgers are in a good enough spot to where if the Dodgers stood pat and made no moves, they'd still be a favorite to win the World Series. They'd still be the favorite in the National League. I think they would still retain that number one seed throughout the rest of the way, assuming health, and it would be fine. Now, what you do trade for is that thing, health. Because if you do lose one starter or another starter, or Buehler doesn't, find his way back and May hits a setback and then somebody gets hurt, okay, then now you're scrambling a little bit. Getting that starting pitcher is more of an insurance policy than anything else, especially like Castillo, Montas. Like I said, they're good. They wouldn't be a number one if Walker Buehler was healthy and ready to go. They would maybe be a number one right now just because of based on stuff, even though Clayton Kershaw's stuff might not be there necessarily in terms of velocity. His stuff is there, and he's been pitching very well. So, yeah, Diego Cartaya, unless it's for Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani, I don't expect him to be traded. I do expect maybe some other guys to get traded. Ryan Pepio maybe being one of those guys. Miguel Vargas, Andy Pages, Michael Busch. Some of those guys may get dealt. I don't expect Bobby Miller or Cartaya to be dealt unless, like I said, it's for Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani or somebody of that nature. Now, the other part that I mentioned, JD Martinez has been linked to the Dodgers. The Red Sox are maybe going to sell, and that's a big bat that can sit in the middle of the Dodgers lineup and provide some thunder, some boom, some home runs and some power. And I think it makes sense, obviously, for the Dodgers to be involved in it. And you look at JD Martinez, he was an all-star this year, sitting 295, but heading into last night, 833 OPS, 9 home runs, 38 RBIs. The power is not quite there, but he's up to 30 doubles. He led the league in doubles last year. He doesn't lead it right now, but I think Freddie Freeman might actually lead right now, but he's up there in doubles. He's doing everything you need. His OPS plus is at 128. He's a force in the middle of that Dodgers lineup. You add him to this Dodgers lineup, and you got Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and JD Martinez as your top 5, even if Muncy, Bellinger don't quite figure it out, that's a pretty vicious top 5. And you can kind of put them any way you want, but I think that's what would happen in that order that I just mentioned. I don't know what it would cost. That's the big thing. Josh Bell is a similar type player who's out there. He's more first baseman, but also plays DH. JD Martinez is kind of strictly DH. Can't really play the outfield. So I don't know what the cost it would be. If it costs you, a prospect in the 6 to 10 range, I might consider it for sure. If it costs you anything less than that, then yeah, Dodgers jump on it, bring that bat over here. And it's just, how I mentioned getting a starting pitcher would be an insurance policy for health. Getting another big hitter is more of an insurance policy for Muncy and Bellinger not figuring it out. Or, Justin Turner seemingly figured it out a little bit, but even then, a Justin Turner injury that could potentially happen, or another injury that could potentially happen. In that same realm, the Dodgers were linked to Garrett Cooper, the all-star from the Marlins. All-star, he was an all-star, but it was a very loose term for the word all-star. He didn't really, I don't know, he got the vote from, I think, the players and coaches, but he's been okay. Now, hasn't been great. He's got a 773 OPS on the year, 118 OPS plus. He's been good, 21 doubles, 7 home runs. He's not necessarily a game changer, which means he would maybe cost a little bit less than a JD Martinez type. He does have a couple years or one more year before he becomes a free agent. So in theory, he could help out. He does play outfield and first base and obviously DH. But realistically, probably not getting him for his defense. You're getting him for his offense. And it's one of those where, yeah, if it's cheaper and the Dodgers can get him, I really want to compare it a little bit to last year where the Braves made a bunch of deals for these smaller top guys. Now, Garrett Cooper is probably a little bit better than, the guys that Braves got last year with Rosario and Jock Peterson and Duvall. I think they got back. But he can be a similar type guy. And if it's going to be cheap, you want to, fortify, 1, your bench, and 2, protect against an injury, which is what a lot of what the Dodgers are going to do at the deadline is not necessarily to, they can help their top line. Obviously, they can, get a player that would be an impact player. But if not, what they're doing is building against the margins. Garrett Cooper would be a guy who, even if he doesn't have an everyday role, doesn't end up having an everyday role, he can be a guy that helps out and can come off the bench and, provide a late inning at bat if need be, stick around in the outfield and or at DH or whatever it is and help you out. So Garrett Cooper, JD Martinez, I'm in on it. If they don't get Juan Soto and if the cost is reasonable, I'm definitely not spending too much if that's the case, just because, it might not well, I guess it would be worth it if they win it all, but I think you could get by with what the Dodgers have right now. Obviously, they're putting up runs, and the top 4 or 5 on the order are still good. And if Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy can just run into some luck in the postseason, then the Dodgers will be just fine and be ready to roll. So that's where it's at. The Dodgers haven't really been linked to anybody else recently. Obviously, they're looking for starting pitching. They've been linked to Castillo and I think lightly linked to Montas. I don't think anything concrete. Pablo Lopez, another name for the Marlins. It's a map, maybe a package for Pablo Lopez, and then you get Garrett Cooper kind of thrown into there. Pablo Lopez would cost a little bit more. Would cost you, I don't think, I wouldn't say Miller or Cartaya, but I think anyone else after that, the Marlins are looking for offensive help. Miguel Vargas would work there. Andy Pajes would work there. For a guy like Pablo Lopez, that's, that might be a deal. He still has some team control, or he's still relatively cheap too as well. So that's what the Dodgers could be looking for. Honestly, every day goes by and we haven't really seen anything. The Yankees made the Benintendi trade. The Mets made a small trade. There's been a bunch of small trades, but there hasn't really been those rumors that we've been used to before, which makes me think, and this is obvious, 1 or 2 things. It's going to be a crazy deadline over the weekend into Tuesday, or the deadlines are going to end up being a little bit of a dud with just the main guys being moved, those main guys being Montas and Luis Castillo. Soto stays, Ohtani stays, a bunch of relievers get traded, a couple lower-end starting pitching like Jose Quintana and those guys get traded, a couple lower bats, maybe a Garrett Cooper or someone like that gets traded. yeah, it could go either way, and I'm excited because every year the Dodgers have done something pretty much since Andrew Friedman has come in, and most of the time they usually get the best player at the deadline. And even if they don't, they've made moves that make sense and help the team to make an impact in a run for October. But we'll see what happens. Real quick, Dustin May made another start for the OKC Dodgers. 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, no walks. Much better, more efficient than he was last time. Dustin May is coming soon, and I'm very excited. I believe Dave Roberts said he's going to have one more rehab start before they decide what to do with him. He ended up going 3 innings this time. I think 46 pitches. I would imagine the next time out would be maybe 4 innings, 60 to 75 pitches, and after that they'll make a decision on where they want to go. Walker Buehler played catch, his arm's still on, so that's a good sign there. Blake Trinan is supposed to face live hitters. He stayed back in Los Angeles. He's supposed to face Chris Taylor being one of those hitters. He's still on tap for a late August return, but slowly but surely the Dodgers are getting a little bit healthier. Graterol is on track to come back soon. And Edwin Rios, seemingly out of nowhere, made a rehab start last night for OKC. He walked and was hit by a pitch, but that's a good sign. That's another big bat off the bench that the Dodgers could have. Jake Lamb has been fine, but Edwin Rios had been better up to that point before he got hurt and would fill that role a little bit better than Jake Lamb has been doing. So exciting times for the Dodgers in terms of guys coming back from injury, exciting times for other potential new players coming via trade, and exciting times for the Dodgers. Been playing very well. The Dodgers would have overtaken by games and by winning percentage over the Yankees, but the Yankees ended up walking off against the Royals. But either way, the Dodgers are playing well. They continue to show that they're one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball. So thank you all for listening. That's going to do it for today's episode. If you need something else, check out Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. It's the #1 daily league-wide podcast. You can get it wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube and the Odyssey app, simply by searching for Locked On MLB. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. I just realized I didn't have my name on there the whole time. But either way, you guys know who I am. I'm Vince Samperio. You can follow me on Twitter at Vince Samperio. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, tear my device, play a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.